Welcome to In the Saloon with. I'm Jane Messer. So, hello, Paddy, and hello, Monica. It is so nice to have you both in the studio together, or rather, Paddy, you are in your Melbourne home studio and we're in Sydney. So we've got this wonderful opportunity to talk about the story Baggage Claim, which you wrote, which was published in Overland, and then Monica performed amazingly well last week. And I just wanted to give a little hint to you, Paddy, and to the listeners that the audience response was palpable. It was so – they were so present. They were so listening. It was a really great reading. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Paddy, you heard it when we shared the sound file with you. You were going to come to Sydney, but a dog got in the way. So you had to listen to just the audio. What was it like hearing your wonderful story, Baggage Claim, read so wonderfully by Monica?
It is quite incredible to hear someone else read your story aloud, but especially incredible to hear an actor read it aloud, because, I feel like all of that training came through in the way that you approached it and spoke through it. And I was really quite interested in listening to it. And, it's a story that has a lot of objects in it. And, objects in stories carry quite a lot of power. And it also had, a shifting relationship. And I was really interested in the way that you really took on those characters and you really sort of went with the whole character thing. I don't know whether that happened naturally or whether you thought about doing it that way.
I did do a lot of preparation in terms of, reading through it a few times and then also reading it out to myself, recording it and then listening back and hearing where did I sound out of breath, where did I trip up. There were a couple of really long sentences and a couple of tongue twisters in there. And I was like, I need to just be very, very mindful and practice those little bits over and over and over again. In terms of character, for me, they come off the page. So I think one of the questions you were going to ask later on about preparation and how does an actor know how to read something, it really is in the punctuation. So that's how I have been trained, and I do my darndest to stick to it unless it is impossible breath-wise. But I did really try. So in terms of voices and things like that, just so that the audience knows, whether that be a male presenting character or a female presenting, or if it's a teenager as opposed to, they've travelled somewhere else, so there's a different voice for that person. It's just to keep it varied and also making sure that this is her natural narrator voice. So this part is narrator and then everything else is character. I also wanted to make sure, sometimes I remember the first time I recorded it and I heard myself kept saying, he said, she said, he said, she said. And I was like, that's really annoying, like in the way that I kept hearing it. And I said to myself, make sure that you don't hit that so hard when you're doing it in front of people. Like you want to make sure it's the words, the dialogue, you wouldn't believe what bags turned up now. Like it's those words that are jumping out at you, not the he said. So that I was like, yes, that one.
One thing I'm really curious about from both of you is, and it particularly struck me with Bray, that you had a particular interpretation, Monica, of him, and it came through in his voice. Obviously the words didn't change, the words that Paddy wrote. Paddy, what did you think of Bray and Miska and how Monica characterised them through her voice?
Yeah, that's really interesting. I felt so. My idea of Bray was probably a little more laconic, and then hearing you kind of revved him up. I thought, which was fascinating to hear it like that, and Miska probably tonally was very similar to the way that I sort of felt it on the page and the way that you read it. So that's part of what I mean by what you invested in the characters. It gave a little tilt to the story, really, having Bray a little more like that rather than the sort of laid-back guy on the couch that I had been imagining him to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was like you. I imagined him a little bit more laid back. But then when I heard Monica reading it, I was thinking, she's right. She's right. I felt like I must have been, I felt like as a reader silently reading the story as I'd read it a number of times, I was kind of making him a little bit more like me almost, but you brought out something that was more distinctive in him that was there. I found the process, hearing it, fascinating. And then Miska, I don't know, Miska just landed exactly as I had imagined her. What about Miska?
She landed very much the way that I had imagined her as I was writing her. So the tilt really came from Bray, and I felt that your interpretation of him perhaps would probably be a more common interpretation of him. More people would think of him that way. And so that would come out when you're reading it aloud. Whereas, because I'm sort of quietly doing this in my room, he's much more quiet and laconic character. And that's one of the things about writing. I think you have to really be aware that you are writing in a very kind of small, dark space, and you need to open up into the world to allow the characters to be more of themselves in the world. So that was really interesting. But I just want to go back to one thing that you said, Monica, that for you punctuation is really important. I would never have thought of that in actors. That just wouldn't have occurred to me. So you're trained that way.
Yeah, so it's much like reading music. So the notes on the page, it's the same with capital letters, ellipses, all of those things. It's a key into how the writer is expressing that particular character's expression, what it is that they're saying. It tells you how they're breathing, which essentially tells you whether or not they're calm or they're enthusiastic or they're excitable or, scared. It tells you quite a lot. I personally heard Bray more chill than what I'm hearing you two ladies say in me. But I was just reading so for me, I'm like, well, I was reading what was there, but at the same time, I could have also just done it in a very understated version. So, and still do the same punctuation. So maybe it was dynamics. I just think people who are in that situation, you've come home and you've had your baggage not return home with you, you can get a bit irate. And because they're at home by themselves, he's got nothing to hold back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I thought the way you presented him made complete sense. It just had never occurred to me when I was reading it silently. And I think it was also, he just had more of an Australian accent than I might have imagined in my head. And
the version that I did, he was quite Australian.
Your version was quite Australian, yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah, but I liked it all. I mean,
I also think a couple that is from Australia that goes to Bali. I was making assumptions. So I was like, they're probably staying in Seminyak or, what's the other one?
There's
Kuta Beach.
Yeah, Kuta.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, just a new question though. Where did the idea from the story come from? I know that's a bit of a classic, but...
It is a classic, and sometimes I think we just lie to make up an answer, because the way that stories form are quite amorphous, and suddenly you're writing a story and later on you think, well, where did that come from? But I was thinking, where did that story come from? I do remember one time, it wasn't even overseas, I was in a souvenir shop here in Australia, and with someone who is a souvenir buyer, and I'm really not a souvenir buyer. And I was wandering around the shop with them, bored, as they're looking at all of these trinkets. And I'm thinking, why would you buy this, and why would you take it home? And so I had started to form an idea of someone opening their suitcase and finding inside all of these things that they'd bought, and Bali seemed an obvious place because people often come back with batik and puppets and, you know, things they will never use. They'll never make a dress out of that batik. And just thinking about, you know, what if they had this sudden realisation when they opened the suitcase? And then the idea, well, but what if the suitcase didn't arrive? And so that actually morphs into a sort of kind of, well, it's not a theme, but it's something that I often come back to, which is class in Australia. And what if the bag arrived and it was from someone who lived a completely different life to the life that they lead, which is always fascinating to me. You know, how do you think about people who live a different life to you, and what kind of relationship do you have with them? And as I said, objects in stories have so much power and weight that I think they tell a story all themselves. So it started with objects, I guess, and morphed into a different story through that.
But it's interesting what you say about class, because in a way that, because both of them work, and Miska needs to go to work, and to go to work she needs to look presentable, and she needs makeup to do that. And so there's that missing object, her missing makeup, because they don't have the bag that they should have had, becomes a portal to, or reason to open the bag. Like, they're not just being frivolous to begin with, are they? I mean, she's got a driver. So is that when you put that in, do you, as a writer, are you thinking this is a plot point, this is a driver, this is a cause for her to do something? Or are you just going with the flow and imagining, oh, maybe this would happen next, and then that would happen, and well, let's see where the story goes?
I think I did want them to open the suitcase, and so I had to find a way to make them open the suitcase, and not a way that made them seem in any way greedy or avaricious or envious, because it was clearly a better suitcase than they had. But, you know, a sensible reason. I really have to do this. I'm a good person. I'm not going to steal anything. I just have to do this. It opens, and there's a whole different world waiting for them just in the single thing of the coat. That, you know, I don't know about you, but, you know, I've got a fair bit of Kmart underwear and tracksuit pants. And, you know, when you buy something that is of good quality and you put it on and you think, this is incredible, I feel like a whole different person wearing this quality item. And so, yeah, I just wanted them to open that and see that. And from there, even though she had a very good reason to do it, from there it starts to be, what if in the opening of the suitcase.
Yeah, because it opens up so many possibilities. And then one of the consequences of them opening the suitcase is they play a little bit of dress-ups and things get a little bit sexy. That's yeah, a little bit raunchy. That's why I had to have Monica read this story. Yeah.
I think you need to explain that comment.
No. We will later. It's just
I'm not sure what that means, Paddy.
No,
I have no idea.
No. I'm just being provocative. Not at all. I mean, I think the way that you wrote about their sexuality and their coupleness and the sex that they have, I thought you did that beautifully, and certainly the audience enjoyed it, and we were quite, intrigued to hear that live. So how do you write sex for characters? Are they in character? Is that what drives what happens between them? Because a lot of writers feel completely confused about this and get very embarrassed and don't know what to do and avoid the whole thing. But your writing, you're pretty relaxed and straightforward about it.
It's pretty easeful.
No, that's good to hear. Yeah, I have a couple of writer friends who say, absolutely not. I will never write about sex. It's going to be fade to black every time. And I said to them, why? Why can't you write about sex? And they said, people might think I'm writing about myself. And I think, some writers are a bit afraid that they'll be judged on the kind of sex that they put on the page about their own sex life. Well, but I don't feel that way. I feel like this is the characters having sex. And I just couldn't sit, like, in the story, the temperature is rising, and with everything that they touch, all of those beautiful fabrics and the feel of them on their skin. And this is a couple who have their life has become mundane. They've been to Bali, and it was an okay trip. It was just an okay trip, and they've come back with the usual souvenirs and everything. And so this feeling of look for Bray, of looking at Miska putting on this very sensual coat and himself lying back on the couch and seeing her in a whole different way, it's a natural move that they would come together sexually in some way. And I must say, I've read and seen on TV and in movies too many sex scenes where they all get all hot and panty, and then they breathe, and then they have a kiss, and then it becomes man pumping woman, pump, 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 and then they orgasm simultaneously. And I think, oh, those sex scenes are tedious and unreal. And so I just hoped that this sex scene would have, besides actually feeling sexy, would have a much more realistic kind of approach to particularly how women like sex and have sex. And so when some friends of mine first read that sex scene, I was really shocked because they were doing the old fanning of the face. Oh my gosh, that's a bit round. That's a bit, isn't it? I'm thinking, really? Really? People are so funny about sex on the page.
It's not that raunchy.
I'm funny about it.
Are you?
Yeah. When I first met Jane, which was in a hotel next to where I was rehearsing a show that I'm currently working on, Jane said, "Oh, so what did you think about the story?" And I said, "I think I blushed, and I was just by myself reading it at home on the computer." And I said, "Would you like to hear it while we're here in the hotel foyer drinking a cocktail? Would you like to hear me read? Would you like to hear a sample of it?" I said, "Oh, sure." And I think Jane was surprised because it'd been a little while since she'd heard also it out loud. But, I'm trying to not be too loud in this hotel foyer because there are people around us. So I think I blushed again.
I may have blushed with you. It was quite funny because I hadn't read the story for a while and I was like, oh, yeah, I forgot. Yeah, no, but I like what you said, Paddy. And I mean, you must have, Monica, read other or acted other scenes where...
No, but we had that conversation.
I know you've never taken your clothes off and you never will. No. But have you had to kiss?
The last time I kissed someone for work was probably, I want to say 10 years ago, I think. And now things have changed so much that there are these things called intimacy coordinators where it's very much, it's almost like choreography. So it's all blocked out, if you're using tongue or not, what sort of pressure you're using, which parts are red, yellow and green that I can touch, etc. So we never had any of that. Yeah. So we never had any of that.
Green.
Yeah. So
That's incredible.
I'm quite the prude. I'm like, no, that won't be me doing any sex scenes anytime soon. But yeah, in terms of reading, this is definitely the most sexy thing I've read, and particularly in front of people. And I just went, Monica, this is what the story calls for. This is what the job calls for. Just read it.
And
well done.
You did it beautifully. And for the people who were there, and when you listen to the podcast, I'm not sure if you heard it, Paddy, that at the point where Miska gets the coat, the beautiful, soft, silky coat, I think it's got cashmere in it. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
Monica reached down to the table just near the stage where her friends were with the coat that she then sort of wriggled into a coat, the same coat that was being talked about in the story. It was done very, very beautifully.
Yes, I could hear that on the recording. You could hear Monica asking for the coat. I thought, oh, what a beautiful moment.
It was.
It meant to be more seamless than that because I had planned to wear it, but I had forgotten.
But then you would have had to open it up.
That's right. I did wear a bracelet. I did have a bracelet on, so I could,
Just if we could shift a little bit, I'm still wanting to talk about the short stories or the short story form. So StorySALOON, short stories on stage. We're all about short stories. You are, you're a very, very proficient, successful, I don't know if prolific is too strong a word, but short story writer, Paddy. What attracts you to the short story form? What's special about it?
There are many, many, many aspects to the short story form that I think are special. Particularly, it gives you the ability to play a lot more than I think a long form book does, because a long form book you are constrained by certain necessities, whereas in a short story, I think the reader comes into a short story with a more open mind. I might be wrong, but I think with a more open mind than they might for a long form work, if only because they know it's only 20 pages. And so they'll stay with you when you're taking risks that if you were taking them in a novel and they're looking at 350 more pages of this, they might not be as open to reading it. So I love the ability to experiment. And also, I think someone once described it as a short story is something's going on in the world and the writer turns on a light and you're watching what goes on and then they turn off the light. And then your interpretation of what happened in that time that the light was on is everything. So the reader has a huge role in the short story, perhaps greater than... You don't get a lot of explanation in a short story, which I love. No, there's not a lot of explaining. There's a lot of showing and a lot of hinting and a lot of undertow, a huge amount of undertow. And the reader comes in and goes away with a big head full of what can be interpreted from that story. So that's just a couple of things that I love about the story. And also the precision, every word counts. Every single word counts. If it's superfluous, then the story falls over.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess with Baggage Claim, you do, and good short stories are like this, that you feel like you can guess at a lot more about those characters' lives than was actually on the page, because so many clues were laid and suggestions were laid down. And I think readers like to have those aha moments where they put things together. And what I think is interesting about the live performance is that it increases the range of aha kind of figuring out, putting things together that you have, because you're listening, but you're also seeing, in this case, Monica, your expression, your hand gestures. Yeah, it was very, very enjoyable reading.
I know, I'm so sad I couldn't see it.
It was quite a night. It was very hot up there, I remember that.
Was it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Or maybe it was just because I was nervous.
Oh.
I was nervous.
You heated up the room with your sexing.
Someone said, I think it was Jules or I'm not sure, maybe it was Jules who said, we couldn't go after you. You would have to be the last one. Where do you go after that story?
Yeah.
It has to be the end of
true.
the night.
It's true. It was perfectly positioned.
Paddy, so has the story baggage claim, did that ever happen to you? Where you've gone away and you've come home and your bag hasn't come home with you?
That has incredibly never happened to me, because I have travelled a lot, particularly in my 20s and 30s, overseas and all around Australia. I have never lost a bag. And there's something, I think maybe I have a little envy, because I have heard of people getting the wrong bag. And sure, they were interested to have a little look. They didn't actually try on the clothes, but they did have a little look to see what was in there. And, you know, those kinds, I think this is what writers do, isn't it? We steal things that happen to other people and reinterpret them to suit our evil ways. So, yes, it hasn't happened to me, but it's happened to people I know.
So with your process, is that something, do you think you do as an actor, that you're observing other people and just, you know, observing the world and, as it were, in quote marks, stealing from it and using that as part of your repertoire that you might then use to create a character?
I would say being an observer is a very big part of being an actor, but mostly to have more in-person experiences so that then you could use them. So you know what it feels like, not to say that you need to be an axe murderer in order to play an axe murderer, but some of those subtler things, you know, like, you know, the difference between the loss of a child and a loss of a pet, or a loss of something that's very precious to you. There are varying degrees of, you know, a family heirloom to, oh, I've just lost that watch. You know, they're still loss, but they're different. I have stolen the identity of a friend of mine and her accent for a character. Yes, I have actually done that, come to think of it. And it was for a comedy skit audition that I put together. And I used her name and her astrology sign and her age and her Singaporean accent. And I was doing a profile video of myself as if I was introducing myself to eHarmony, like for a for a profile to be on a dating site. And yeah, it was pretty ridiculous.
So you were actually putting her profile up?
Pretending to be her,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
And did she find out about this?
I told her about it. She's also an actor, so I just told her. Yeah. We had a good laugh about it. It hasn't gone anywhere, but it might come back. Who knows?
Monica and Paddy, you both, I guess, have portfolio careers. This is the nature of being a creative artist. Monica, can I just, because when we've spoken, you were coming out of rehearsals where you were assistant directing, and I know you've got other projects on the go that are not acting roles but directing and creative production roles. How do you manage it all, and where does all the work come from? And
managing is trying to be a juggler at the best of times. So I think in order to be a creative, a freelance creative, you need to have many different hats. And so I've tried to accumulate 5. Oh. Before I was at NIDA, but I was auditioning to get in, there was a teacher there who had said to me, you need 5 jobs. if you want to be a successful creative. And I was like, oh, I'm going to remember that. So I've just acquired my 5th one. Which is the directing.
Right.
Yeah.
And what are the 5? Acting, directing?
Acting, directing, voiceover, DJ, and yoga teacher. Mostly I've been acting and yoga teaching. They've been my main sources of income, but yoga not so much now. And the DJing has probably been about 5 years, 6 years now.
Right. And is that as you would like to have it, or is that satisfying, or is it the juggling
I
bit
would
of a challenge?
say, yeah, sometimes I go, oh, why did I choose this? Because I know I've chosen it, but I've also tried many other jobs. Like when I was studying at NIDA, I was a real estate agent for a hot second. I was like, this is not for me though. Like I know I don't want to do this, so I'm just doing this for the minute to appease my dad. So, and I've worked in retail, I've worked in hospitality. Yeah, it's many things.
Yeah.
But the ones that have stuck are the ones that I have now.
I feel bad because when I've been teaching writing at universities, which I did for many, many, many years, I always told the students that they need 2 careers, one of which was a writer and one of which was the one where they earned their living. But now I feel like perhaps I've let them down. Maybe I need to say, and up to 5. And so, Paddy, what about you? How do you...
Yes, so writers, I mean, at least I'm not a poet, so occasionally I do get paid for writing. But, you know, what kind of fools are we that we say, I will write something, maybe a collection of short stories or a novel, and I'll spend 2 to 3 years doing that unpaid in the sad little hope that someone will like it and decide to publish it. Truly, we are masochists, I think, probably even more so than actors. And so, yes, we all have many careers. Some of my highlights, because you end up doing bizarre things. Some of my highlights are being Miss Florida Grapefruit Queen in a supermarket in Tokyo. That was humiliating. People ran from me. They ran away from me because I was thrusting pieces of grapefruit at them while wearing a cardboard crown. And so, yeah, all those jobs. I mean, like most writers, I've done a fair bit of teaching, of creative writing, which I feel like teaching can be great because in terms of trying to express what writing is and how it's done, you learn a lot about the process yourself. But then after a while, I think it becomes a bit rote and you can easily be a bit stale. So I sort of liked to go in, come out, and refresh a little bit and do all kinds of other jobs. So more than 5. I've had more than 5 hats, probably about 249 or something like that. You know, it's a choice you make, isn't it, Jane and Monica? It's a choice you make. I may not be wealthy, but I'm doing the thing that I want to do.
Yeah, and I mean, another aspect of it, which I think writers and actors definitely share, is that you just have to deal with rejection all the time, and it's tough. And which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do StorySALOON, because I wanted to give attention to, you know, this under the radar forms, short stories, and there's some wonderful short stories in Australia and great short story writers. Like, you are a short story writer. You have written many short stories. It's not something you've just dipped into once or twice and then run off and only work on a novel or whatever. And there's not much attention given to them. I mean, as somebody who, you've written novels and short stories, Paddy, do you feel that more gravitas is given to the novels than your short story collections?
just in terms sort of the single short story, I remember winning the age competition, which was a big thing back in the day. It was huge. And the first thing that happens is publishers will ring you and say, have you got a novel? They don't even recognise that you just won a major competition with a story. It's, have you got a novel? And you say, well, I'm nearly got a collection of short stories. Oh, yeah, but have you got a novel? So I think it's always been that way. And short stories, they have a moment, probably about every 10, 15, maybe 20 years or something, where they get recognised. Like at the moment, Fiona McFarlane's short stories are getting a lot of recognition. They're winning prizes and stuff. Fabulous to see. She deserves everything that she gets with those stories. And I think good for her. She's riding a wave. But, you know, the next incredible collection of short stories may not be on that wave, because people do turn back feeling, I think, as you said, Jane, that somehow their novel has more gravitas, which I completely disagree with. I think short stories have gravitas in the same way that, you know, what's that tiny little particle that has more, it's more dense than anything else in the universe, and that is what a short story is like.
Oh, that is beautiful. Words of a writer. So just would like to finish up asking each of you what you're working on. Monica, I know you're working on about 3 things. If you could talk about what's coming up that interests you the most.
Well, currently it's on at the Hayes Theatre. It's a musical that is called Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown. And it's based on Pedro Almodovar's Spanish film set in Madrid, 1987. And it's very colourful and the music's fantastic. The cast is amazing. The design is great. And the direction is awesome because my director is fantastic, Alexander Bellage. I am also directing a 10-minute self-devised piece with Year 11 students up in Wycliffe College in Warramoo in the Blue Mountains, and that's going to be part of the Nexus Festival in Penrith at the Q Theatre at the end of June. And then I'll be acting in a play called Fewer Emergencies at the Old Fitz in July, August.
Oh, I love that theatre.
Yeah, so, busy for the next few months.
That sounds great. And what about you, Paddy? What are you working on?
Oh, I am always working on short stories. Sometimes they sit in the drawer for 2 to 3 years because I can't figure out what they're about, and then I pull them out and no, put them back, pull them out, no, put them back, pull them out. Yes, I have it. So, you know, I have a whole file on my computer of things that are either in a coma, that's the actual name of the folder, in a coma, or half finished. And I will pull them out and have another go. And I am also working on a longer work. But just talking today has made me think again about that whole what's in the suitcase and the souvenirs, and I can feel something bubbling up about that right as we speak. I'll probably have to make some notes when we get off from speaking. Yeah. It's been quite inspirational.
Well, you can't do better than that, having a conversation with artists and being inspirational. Thank you very much, Paddy, and thank you very much, Monica.
Thanks you. So much for having me. It's been wonderful.
Nice to meet you.
You too, and thanks again for that beautiful reading.
Thank you.
And for organising, Jane.
Yeah, well done.
Very welcome. Thank you. You've been listening to an episode of In the Saloon with. Your host has been Jane Messer, recording by Martin Gallagher, along with sound design. A big thanks to the whole Story Saloon team.